So much as we now the heads of court led by Chief Justice Manqoba Mchunu will present an annual report on judicial functions and court performance for the South African Judiciary for the year ending 31st of March 2019.
So the Inaugural Judiciary Day took place in November last year. This was a historical event as it was the very first time the judiciary as an arm of state actually took the lead in accounting for its work and for the power and authority the state has endowed to it. So we're going to get more on this now.
Indeed we are. And of course our colleague Manqoba Mchunu is standing by at the Constitutional Court along with Vuyani Green. They're all there. So let's cross over to Manqoba. Good morning.
Well, very good morning to you, Sakina. Of course, coming to you from the Constitutional Court here in Johannesburg, one of the highest court, or in fact, the highest court in the land and the last authority when it comes to law. And of course, this is where we expect that annual report to be presented in about an hour and a half's time from now on. Of course, this is really an in-depth look at the judiciary and how the judiciary has performed in the last year or so. Of course, looking at what has worked and whether or not the country's courts have met the targets that have been set, and if not, where there are problems, and of course where there have been improvements. So we're going to be crunching the numbers, really looking with regards to the number of High Court judgments that have been given, and if so, how many of them are still outstanding. Of course, you'll recall that there were issues and reports of some of the judges being taken to the Judicial Services Commission for outstanding judgments. So those are some of the things that we expect to hear from, and of course how the high courts in general have performed, what has worked, what has not worked, and of course whether or not the judiciary is doing its work accordingly and without fear or favor. Of course, being an important arm of government, it's one of the three arms of government, the others being the legislature as well as parliament. So it's one of the important arms with regards to accountability, and one that has to be viewed in a very fair manner by the people, which has to do its work without fear or favor. So we'll be getting an in-depth report on that, and of course the vision that the Chief Justice has for the judiciary going forward with regards to how they should be operating. But just to talk more on this and the expectations from this annual general report that will be presented here, I'm joined by our parliamentary editor Vuyani Green. Vuyani Green, a very good morning to you and thank you for being with us. Vuyani, how important is this annual report? Of course it was launched last year in November, but we're seeing it taking place, and the Chief Justice saying that it's going to be an annual thing. How important is all of this?
Good morning, Manqoba, and good morning to our viewers. I think this is important, as you know that this was launched last year. The first one was last year towards this time, and this is the second one. And I think here the Chief Justice is likely to unveil or to tell us or tell South Africans whether or not they've met the targets that they set for themselves, and some of the issues that you've alluded to, whether justice is being served, and whether the judiciary in all its different facets, judges in the Constitutional Court, High Court, Supreme Court of Appeal, and in the magistracy, whether are they doing their job without fear or favor. But this is about accountability. As you've indicated that there are three arms of the state, the judiciary, the executive, and the legislature. The other two, they account to parliament, but the judiciary, the constitution says the judiciary is accountable only to the constitution and the law, and not to parliament. So this is one of the inherent tensions within our in our constitutional democracy, and I think that the Chief Justice will explain here when he addresses the delegates here why they deem it fit to account here, to table their report here. As you know that all the reports are tabled in Parliament. The President goes to Parliament to account to South Africans. In terms of oral questions, we normally see him, taking questions from MPs, and also in terms of written questions that are posed to him. And also the President invites all the other arms of the state to assemble in Parliament and deliver the State of the Nation address. And I don't know why the Chief Justice is not doing the same thing, because the President is not a member of Parliament, as you know. Similarly, the Chief Justice is not a member of Parliament as the head of the judiciary. So it will be interesting to find out from him why, for instance, he doesn't extend ask the presiding officers of Parliament for them to offer him an opportunity to go to Parliament and deliver this report in Parliament, and allow various political parties represented in Parliament to interrogate and question him in the same way as they do to the president. But as I said initially, the drafters of our constitution said the judiciary is accountable to the constitution and to the law. So we'll have to wait and see how the Chief Justice is going to respond to some of those questions.
And of course, Vuyani, this is a great test for democracy, to know that the judiciary is doing its work effectively, and that it's doing its work without fear or favor. But to speak on the issue of accountability, of course, it's also important for the judiciary to be seen to be independent.
It is quite important. As you know, our constitutional democracy is still fairly new, 25 years. We've experienced some problems, tensions between the executive and the judiciary in terms of the court judgments, especially those court judgments were against the executive, whether or not those judgments are obeyed and respected. But we haven't seen problems that will delegitimize our judiciary. Of course, there are differences of opinion in terms of certain issues and all those kinds of issues. But we've in many cases which the judiciary found against the executive, we've seen the executive complying. In many cases where the judiciary found certain laws passed by our parliament to be inconsistent with the constitution and ordered parliament to remedy those inconsistencies, we've seen parliament complying with that. So it seems to me that our constitutional democracy is functioning very well. Of course, there are those inherent tensions because politicians, they will tell you that they derive their mandate from the voters, and they will say these judges are not voted by people, are not elected by people, and therefore there are those kinds of tensions. But those kinds of tensions are normal in any flourishing democracy.
And of course, there have been allegations leveled against some of the judiciary of being captured and so forth. Do you think that this is likely to pop up today during this annual report?
We expect the Chief Justice to respond to some of those allegations. You'll recall that when those allegations surfaced, the Chief Justice called a press conference where he tried to address those questions, those allegations, and invited everyone to come forward and report those. Our constitution has created a structure called the JSC, Judicial Services Commission. That's the structure that holds judges or the judiciary accountable. And fortunately, that structure is very transparent in the sense that it is comprised of both lawyers, jurists, and politicians. All of them there in that body. So that's why it's important for people who've got those kinds of allegations to report them to that body. And our politicians are represented there, and I'm pretty sure that those allegations will be dealt with.
Thank you very much. That was Vuyani Green, our parliamentary editor, speaking to us here about what's expected here in this annual report or judiciary report that will be presented here this morning. Of course, we do expect proceedings to start around about 9:45 this morning with a judiciary procession that will be led by the Chief Justice Mogoeng. That will be following by opening remarks by the Deputy Chief Justice Raymond Zondo, of course. And then at around about 25 to 11, we do expect the opening or the key note address by the Chief Justice Mogoeng, where he will highlight in depth at how our country's courts are doing.
Well, thank you so much to our reporter there, Manqoba Mchunu, from the Constitutional Court, and he outlined those proceedings as they will unfold later today quite nicely. So stay tuned to SABC News Channel, and we'll be bringing you those proceedings as they happen.
All right, let's take a break. We've got